everyone, Sean Smith here with Dedicated Financial GBC. I'm the founder and CEO. Doing our vlog today with Mrs. Donna Martin, the Executive Director of Minnesota Good Works. How you doing, Donna?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Welcome to the vlog.
Yes.
It was an exciting time, long time coming. So Donna and I have known each other for a better part of a decade. Honestly, I've lost track. It's been quite a while. Both attend the same church, met working in ministry and kind of grew and evolved from there. We had an initial concept we had talked about working with homelessness and things like that here in Minnesota. And, you know, through the years, it ended up being that Minnesota Good Works has come out of it. But I'd love if you just start out with people, giving everyone your background and just kind of what brought you to Minnesota Good Works first.
Sure. So with Minnesota Good Works, the last 10 and a half years, I've worked with public assistance programs, and so watching people fall through the cracks constantly with our food support programs, our healthcare, emergency assistance, cash programs, and just seeing how we're not able to really meet the needs of everybody. And so that's kind of where Minnesota Good Works has come from, is just really bridging those gaps, working with other business owners, other nonprofits, churches, government agencies, so that we can meet those needs for everybody that's vulnerable.
But it's a key background to have that vantage point of working in government, but also seeing what a lot of NGOs are doing here in Minnesota and how, you know, they're reporting a lot of good things that they do in their lane.
Yes.
Right. And so I'd love for you then to take with that background of over a decade and watching this transfold and just seeing what government is and isn't doing and what these NGOs are doing. How does that lead to, and what is now Minnesota Good Works and what is it doing?
What does it lead to? It leads to high recidivism rates in a lot of different areas because the needs aren't being met. So then people are constantly falling back or they're not moving forward. So that's what it leads to.
But if someone's getting like housing or food assistance or something like that, like where are they? What do you mean by they're falling out of that? Because if they're getting help with housing, you know, and things like that, how are people falling out, I guess?
Well, specifically with Minnesota Good Works, we're working with human trafficking. So, and those ladies that have come into human trafficking due to no fault of their own because of vulnerabilities that aren't being met. And it could be lack of job skills, it could be no child care, it could be, you know, there's numerous things that affect somebody. And then when you have trauma on top of it, if that's not being healed and restored, we can put them in a house, but what if they don't know how to do laundry or they don't know how to cook or any of those things? So it's a full package.
So what is Minnesota Good Works? And I'm asking this a little tongue-in-cheek because I'm on the board, but you know, for those out there to say, okay, it's another nonprofit, there's nonprofits, and I think maybe even people understanding some of the key statistics of why Minnesota, because I don't think most people think of Minnesota and high rate of sex trafficking, right? So maybe dive into that a little bit and some of those key statistics too.
Yeah, we are third highest in trafficking in the state, or in the nation, I apologize. And our recidivism rate is around 70%, meaning that people are falling back into the life that they were previously in. And, you know, within 48 hours of somebody being homeless, there's a groomer out there looking for them, whether it's at the mall, the coffee shop, any place like that, just waiting to offer somebody vulnerable a place to stay, something to eat, a hot shower, and then, you know, they're in a situation that they can't get out of.
What is the average age?
13.
So, you know, I think when I heard those statistics that according to the FBI we're the number 3 state, the average age is 13, the average time is 48 hours before they're already getting groomed into sex for housing or food, you know, which are, you know, things people need to survive, right? And that's where Minnesota Good Works comes in, is that there's a lot of nonprofits and government assistance, but the problem is there's big gaps in between there, right? And that's the design of Minnesota Good Works, is to fill those gaps, to cut down the recidivism rate, because each one of these NGOs is talking about how we're helping, you know, 50 people or 1,000 people. We were just out doing a video shoot for Love Give Repeat today, and I want to say it was over 200 women that they were helping for Brittany's Place, which was great. Shout out to Brittany's Place. Great organization, and that's great that they're doing that, because if they weren't doing that, that's 200 people that wouldn't be getting help with housing.
Right.
But there's so much more need outside of that, and sometimes those jumps between, okay, I get help with housing for a year or two, but now I have to go out. That jump becomes something they can't do.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's why we developed our enrichment program. So we have trauma-informed, suicide-informed, trained mentors that are coming alongside these women for a minimum of 2 years with a prayerful goal that we are creating lifelong friendships, and they're going to walk individually with them and work with them on a very individualized program. So we're not putting them into a box, into a cookie cutter situation. We're looking at them specifically so that we can help them determine what it is that's going to help them be successful. And maybe that is job skills, maybe that's education, maybe they just need a driver's license. They've never had that opportunity to drive a car. We've also developed a program for compassionate employers who are willing to bring these ladies in and train on the job, where we will help assist up to 6 months of their wages while they're being trained through this compassionate employer. So those are great opportunities, and then they're going to have a job coach that's working one-on-one with the employer and the individual. Fantastic things to help along.
Yeah, that's huge, and those are the things that really stuck out to me and drew me in as a business owner. Was, as we're donating, as we're giving back, I wanted to know that I could have direct impact.
Yes.
I think a lot of big worries of nonprofits these days is that 50% of it's going to wages or marketing or whatever versus the intended recipient.
Right.
And that's a big focus for Minnesota Good Works, is that the donations coming in from donors are going directly to the recipient. And what we're looking for is corporate donors that want to help cover costs throughout the year, so that we can say ultimately 100% of donations go to the intended receiver. Right?
Absolutely.
And so that's why I wanted to have you on and to highlight what Minnesota Good Works is doing. So especially if you're in Minnesota, but if you're passionate about giving back to a nonprofit that is going to have direct impact in folks coming out of trafficking, I think this is a great spot. That's why I've invested my time and money into it. But I'd love for you to end on this, is I usually ask people, tell us one thing about yourself that maybe most people who know you wouldn't know. But I'm going to put a little twist on that for you. And that's why I'd love for you to end on the story of what really finally pushed you over the proverbial ledge to start Minnesota Good Works. Because I think it's a really powerful one, and I think most people that knew you as an acquaintance wouldn't know that story.
Right. So it was a traffic victim survivor on my doorstep. I live in Ramsey, quiet neighborhood, and somebody was banging on my door in the middle of the night, and I didn't answer it. I thought it was somebody that was high or drunk or something, and was watching out my window, and there were the police and an ambulance there hauling away a young Asian man in his underwear. And didn't think much about it. Really just thought, oh, he's taken care of now. I'm going back to bed. It's all good. And then I woke up in the morning to take my dog out, and there was blood literally all over my front porch. And I lived in a townhouse, so it was 4 of our entryways. And so when I had called the police right away and just said, hey, can you tell me what the heck happened here last night? Because, what in the world? Officer came over, started talking to myself and the neighbors, and said that, he couldn't really tell us what was happening because it was under investigation. And he said, but what young Asian man can't speak English, his name in English, in today's age in America? And I just kept looking at him thinking, what? I said, are you saying this is like trafficking? And he's like, it's under investigation, ma'am. And he's shaking his head. I'm like, okay, I got you, So that was really scary because, here was a young man that needed help, and we don't know the end to that story, right? We know that he got help, he went to the hospital, but we don't know what happened after that. But to think of, a 20-some-year-old young man that was bleeding and on your doorstep and had something to do with a trafficking case, it just digital
and I
works.
think, especially if you're from Minnesota, again, the number 3 state according to the FBI, this stuff is happening right in front of us. You told me other stories of things happening in Maple Grove,
Yes.
and we think maybe it's in a ghetto area or in a slum or something like that. Like, no, it's happening even in the most affluent areas. It's happening where you live is out there, good, 30 minutes, 40 minutes outside of the downtown Minneapolis, St. Paul area, right? So it's more rural, it's growing, but things like that, right? Like, it's not areas where you'd expect. It's not in places you would expect. And, my final just kind of ask of anyone watching is, if you're interested in donating or maybe being a volunteer, a mentor, or a corporate sponsor, but the biggest thing coming up here is just to get more information is to consider coming out to our gala. And maybe you just want to touch base on that a little bit.
On November 10th from 5:30 to 8:30 over at Leopold's Mississippi Gardens in Brooklyn Park. It's going to be a phenomenal time. We've got Eric Perkins emceeing for us. Sean is speaking. So
briefly, very briefly.
Yeah.
We have a survivor speaking there. And so it's just going to be a night of learning about what's going on here in Minnesota and really here nationally. And what are we doing about it, and how can you be involved? And so whether you can be a corporate sponsor or attendee, bring your +1 out, have a great night, amazing venue, and just some great people. We'd really love for you to come out and check it out. And thank you, Donna, for being on the vlog and for all that you do. We're actually going to hop off this vlog now and go right to a board meeting. So thank you guys as always for tuning in, and God bless, and thank you, Donna.